So welcome. What I'm going to talk about today is our research about the biggest lie book authors are told. I'm talking about agency owners, I'm talking about business coaches, I'm talking about consultants, and there's this big lie out there that the book is going to promote you. Wrong-o. Authors promote books. Books don't promote authors. So our motto is the book publication is the starting line, not the finish line. And I know we have authors that will attest to this. My word for the year is amplify. And I really want the indie book family to amplify each other's work. And at the forum that we're going to have in March in La Jolla, and if you weren't able to attend the forum this year, I just wanted to say, you're making a huge mistake that you're going to regret for the rest of your life. Okay. So the forum brings together at least 50 speakers, authors, experts who are your potential promotion partners. You can invite each other to speak on your podcast. You can blog about each other. You can go to LinkedIn and endorse each other. When you give a speech, and there's somebody else in the book's family that would be good for, you introduce them to these people. So writing the book can be solitary, even if you're working with a developmental editor like me. It's a solitary exercise. Promoting the book, you need all the friends and relationships you can get, because it's not about meeting strangers on the internet. There are strategies for that. You do a podcast to invite guests onto your podcast who are people who are going to promote their visit on your podcast to their people, to their community. And that introduces you to strangers, but through this third party who they have some trust and credibility with. Okay, that's strangers. Getting booked and all those things comes down to a relationship. So we really advocate, and you're going to hear me talk about it at the forum about my expectations. My expectation is you should buy each other's book for 99 cents and give them a verified purchase review on Amazon. And I know you're busy, and I know money's tight. You can spare 99 cents and a couple of minutes to do that for each other. It's not a quid pro quo. It is the law of reciprocation. Call it karma, call it kismet, call it what you will. But if you give of yourself and you share news about other people, or what you're doing here, being in this community on this Q&A is great. You get to meet other authors. I hope you go to LinkedIn. I hope you do chats on the side. I hope you do these other things. It's relationships that are going to help you build the book and build your brand, because you did the book to have more credibility, more impact, and more influence. It's not going to just happen. You're not going to get discovered. None of us get discovered. We were talking about Dr. Brene Brown, University of Texas, and she has some other appointments, and her popularity. She wasn't always like that. You know, she was like the rest of us, coming out with a book, trying to get some attention, getting on some podcasts. And she got, not discovered, she got momentum, and then it built. And there was a breakthrough TED Talk for her. I really encourage all of you to do a TED Talk. And the TED Talk might not be the topic of your book. I'm doing a TED Talk, working on that right now, getting it booked. And it's not about writing a book or persuading with a story. It's something else, because the TED Talk needs to have some more universal appeal, an idea worth sharing. It leads people back to you and your work. And real quick, what are we talking about? Doing small-scale seminars on Zoom on at least a monthly basis and getting people there. here's a format that we're suggesting you can do, and I got it from our new family members from Predictive ROI, which I advocate you get involved with. Predictive ROI does these regular Q&As. There is no sales message. There's nothing hard. They're trying to be helpful to a community, and people get to meet each other in the community and promote. Now, this is like a magician showing the secret. When you attend these Q&As, here's what the cool kids are doing. They're asking a question. So when I'm on Predictive ROI, and they ask it, are there any questions? Well, you want a discussion. You want questions going back and forth. So you can put a question in the chat. Oh, here's what I want to advise everybody to do right now as I'm blathering on. Go to the chat and list your name and your email address so other people can find you. Maybe the title of your book or your upcoming book. That's all. When you ask the question, hi, I'm Bruce Werner. I'm the author of Your Ownership Journey. And my question is, how do I get booked on more podcasts? Okay, that was just a commercial for Bruce, and it helped me get a discussion going. And then this is from our producer, Suzanne. Be in the chat and give attaboys to other people in the chat when they, oh, good answer. Or, if I say something accidentally, sometimes I say something smart. If I do, maybe you quote me in chat and put it there. So these are meant to be interactive. I suggest you host one. 2, get on other people's podcasts. I try to do at least 2 a month. There's 2 million podcasts. They're multiplying like rabbits. There are plenty of podcasts to find. People need guests. We're testing out a service where we'll match you for like $29 a month to get on podcasts. But some of them is just through this networking and working to do that. If you're too busy to do this, that's great news. You have the good problem, too much work. That doesn't mean you don't promote. It means you delegate to people, hire some people to do the promotion for you. And what they can't do is be the person on the mic, the person who's given the Q&A. I have a team that's working to get these going. And since it's Super Bowl, I'm sorry, it's the big game. I don't want the NFL suing us. The big game, the Super Bowl. Since it's that week, I'll use the football analogy as I'm just the quarterback for Indie Books International. I get a lot of the attention. The great quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes out of Kansas City, they know it's their offensive line that really is the star. And NFL quarterbacks give very expensive gifts to their linemen because those are the people who are protecting them from those people running at them that want to do them harm. Think of this thing. It's not you. You need to have a team. You need to have a team to do this level of promotion. So I couldn't do this without Devin and producer Suzanne. I couldn't do it without Vicky and Vicky DeVries. We moved her out of the editorial department into the acquisitions department. I just needed more help getting the messages out there. And she's the editor for my Forbes columns. And, she challenged me on something the other day, and we went back and forth, and she was right. And we went with it. And I said, you're doing your job. Challenge me. I want to be challenged on these things. And so you need the team. That's what I'm saying. You need to write. And the latest thing that I found that is so great is I do a weekly LinkedIn newsletter. I do it at 10 a.m. Wednesday Pacific time. And I'm in something called a pod of 20 other people who are doing newsletters at the same time. And the pod all comments on each other's newsletter. And that triggers the algorithm at LinkedIn to send out our newsletters wider. Now, I didn't do anything to promote the newsletter. I have 1,300 subscribers in 5 weeks. to the newsletter, 1,300 people checking in on what I'm saying every week. What could that be for you? So those are just 3 ways we're saying is don't buy the lie that the book's going to promote you. Promote the book, get the book in the spotlight, and the reflection of that spotlight is what's going to bring clients to you for speaking, training, consulting. It's the reflection that will get you the ROI of what we've measured 400 to 2,000% on what you're putting into this. Some have leveraged this for extra $1 million that they wouldn't have had. So that was my message to you today. You can ask Devin a question. She's our social media expert. You can ask me a question. I'm opening up to questions right now. You can also put questions in the chat. I'll look there. A lot of times Devin is the producer on this show, so might bring things to me. Any question? I see Nona Prather has a question. Nona, go ahead.
Sorry, I gotta unmute myself first. So Henry, as you know, I'm a booking agent for professional speakers, and I'm the author of 24 Ways to Get Paid to Speak. I was curious whenever you said that everyone should do a TED Talk, and you hadn't said that before. And then you were saying something about it so I wouldn't do a TED Talk about 24 ways to get paid to speak, because they like thought-provoking different ideas, not like how-tos really. So like, what kind of TED Talk would I do? I'm just curious what you think.
Thanks. So the first thing, the member of our family who's the expert on this is your client, Frank King. And Frank is coming to the forum, and Frank will brainstorm with you, catch him. He loves to do that. If you wanted to hire him as a coach, he's happy to do that too. But I mean, at the forum, you can brainstorm with all these people. So Nona, for me, I was telling one of our authors this story about my father to make this point about I was hired at the age of 6 to work on the family dairy farm, and it started with a very unusual HR orientation, which has been the best HR orientation I've ever received in my whole life. And I didn't realize it until his funeral, and I was delivering his eulogy, and I told the story. And she said, "That's a TED Talk." And I said, it is. And I bounced it off Frank, and I bounced the idea off Frank, and he said, "That's a TED Talk." So I don't know what it is for you, but you have great stories and you have great experience, because I don't think you know a day that you weren't working in the family business. Your earliest memories. So there's something there, or your father, Karl Potter, famous speaker. There's some Karlism. He's got a lot. So it might be sharing something about, that, or something about working the family, or something that anybody could benefit from. So some of that is brainstorming. Okay. Another question. Does anybody else have a question here?
You have some in the chat, Henry.
Oh, okay. If you could point one out, that'd be helpful. Pam. No. Who has a question?
John asked, what are your top 3 ways to promote your book and service?
Oh, John, could you state it for me?
Yeah, so I was just trying to find out. Thanks, Henry. And hello to everybody. My name is John, and I wrote a book, and I am just kind of new at this whole thing, and I'm trying to figure out, what are your top 3 ways to go about promoting it? And I'm kind of getting one way is with the newsletter, and I think you said the second way is with Q&As, which seem to work really well. Is there something like, would you use Amazon? So I'm currently promoting my book via Amazon, and I know a lot of options under KDP, different ways to promote the book, and I didn't know if you had any advice or counsel on
Sure.
that.
Well, thanks for asking. Top 3 ways to promote a book. Number 1, small scale seminars. We recommend on Zoom, and I'm going to do 2 and 3, and then Devin, I'd just like you to expand a little on small scale seminars. So 2 is get on other people's stages. The easiest stages to get on are podcasts. and just takes a little research. And the quick way to get on a podcast is to watch the podcast, send the email to the podcaster and say, I liked episode number 438. I really loved it when you interviewed Claire Price, and Claire gave those great tips on how to be smart about your marketing and automate your marketing. I'm the author of this. If you'd be open, here's a magic phrase, John. If you would be open to a conversation, not would you book me as your guest? That's a yes or no. If you'd be open to a conversation about me being a guest or suggesting other guests to you, that would be great. That would be appreciated. That would be awesome. Okay. The
Hey,
third
Henry?
thing, yes, is the LinkedIn newsletter has been my latest discovery. I'm getting published. And if you're an author, you just excerpt your book. It's a real no-brainer. Just come up with a content plan, how you're going to excerpt 500 or so words a week. I have some advice if you want it. I have a headline generator that it's not clickbait, but it raises curiosity to get. So my LinkedIn newsletter this week was about the biggest lie, the biggest book lie agency owners are told.
Yeah, I read it. It was
And
very,
then the lie was that the book will promote them. The truth is they need to promote the book. So I didn't I didn't do those things where it's clickbait and you can't find the answer and, have you go through 37 slides, it's like not that. Or that thing about there's this one food you need to eat and it's really going to improve your health. Half an hour later of the video, you still don't know what this food is. I hate those people. I hate them so much. Okay, so we need to offer help, not hype, in our answer. Now, Devin, could you comment on small scale seminars?
thank you.
Yeah, so for small scale seminars, the philosophy behind that is it's a way to kind of establish a connection with your prospects, a way to show, one, that you are the expert that you say you are by giving them helpful information, being generous with your time, and two, for them to have kind of a safe way to see kind of your style, how you work with people. That's not a one-on-one sales call as the first interaction they have with you. So what you want to do is have that kind of, it's an intro step. And then hopefully by the end of it, they're interested enough to do the next kind of easy step of, which we recommend having like a strategy call offer. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And the reason why we say small and not, try to get huge webinars is because of the interaction. So again, you're trying to, build these relationships. So you want a small enough group that you can actually talk to everybody who attends, or in this kind of case, give everybody an opportunity to ask a question, yet have their voice heard. So that's the high level philosophy behind it. We have a lot of material on it. If you want to know more, I'm happy to chat with you.
Actually, Devin, I was going to do it playfully, but I'll just ask. Devin's going to send a follow-up email to everybody. Why don't you put a link to your white paper on doing it? Devin has a great strategy. It uses LinkedIn. It's kind of a two-step approach. And the comments that Devin gets back is, this sounds different than anything else we're getting, on the internet. There's just something about this approach that made me want to check this out. It's the relentlessly helpful, non-smarmy strategy. That's what they see as different. Don't you hate it when somebody says, will you link in with me? And instantly they have a message come back to, let's book an appointment, 20-minute get to know each other appointment. I'd like to be your life coach. That was my favorite. I'm like, well, usually I like dinner and dancing before we have an offer to be my life coach. It's like a little too soon there. Thank you, Devin. Send that along. I see Bruce has a hand up. Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. So all of your suggestions in the last 20 minutes are good and they work, but it presupposes a critical question. And talking to other authors or people, considering writing a book, I always say, why are you writing the book? Is your goal to generate revenue from book sales or to generate revenues by speaking and consulting? It makes a massive difference in your approach. If you want to generate revenue by book sales, you need to go down a certain path and do everything Henry told you and about 1,000 times more. Given that the average book sells maybe a few thousand copies, Devin could correct me on that. If you kind of run the math, you say, okay, so that's the economic potential. I have found that giving away the book is one of the best things you can do. So for $10, I can put a copy of my book in a prospect's hand. I can't buy a cup of coffee for $10. Certainly if you include your time. And the story I shared with Henry is, my book came out in March. A little bit later, I was referred into a situation that should have been great. I called, I wrote. The guy wouldn't respond to me at all, and I was about to write him off. I said, you know what? I'll send him a book. If he doesn't answer, so be it. I sent him a book. He called me a week later, hired me on the spot. We just sold his company for $75 million last week. He paid for the cost of the book plus a 50% ROI on top of that, plus has given me referrals. It cost me $10 to send him the book. So you need to think of it as an overall marketing strategy. If you're selling your services, the book is a tool in your total campaign. For $10 a pop, doesn't get much better.
Bruce, you bring up a good point. And John, we have what we are, like your minimum daily requirements of vitamins. So we have the minimum monthly requirement for an author. You send 20 books out a month to people who could book you as a speaker or hire you. Number two, you do 2 showcases a month, and that means you're not getting paid. Those showcases could be podcasts, it could be the Q&A you put on, but at least twice a month you're talking to people about it. And then the other thing is, the minimum requirement is 30 seeds. You send a minimum 30 emails out a month to podcasters or to prospects, or you're planting seeds. I do 90 a month. But you got to work up to that. But the minimum daily requirement, like the vitamin, as my partner Mark LeBlanc says, is one a day, one a day, one a day. Bruce, thanks for bringing that up. Eileen Marcus. Eileen, your question.
Hello, I'm Eileen Marcus, and I speak to entrepreneurs and founders about using innovation to attract and keep top talent. And I wrote the book Managing Annoying People because top talent, including me, can be very annoying. And I'm working on my second book, which is Managing Annoying Me, now that I'm managing other people, or that I've managed other people. And my question is probably more of a Devin question. So Henry and I were talking yesterday, the whole thing with the newsletters, and I looked in my LinkedIn mailbox after that. I sent you a screen pic, not a screen pic, Henry, of, I had like 20 invitations to newsletters. And I've definitely been that person, right? Hi, how are you? Will you buy insurance? Will you do this? I'm hit with it. So my new question, Devin, is, do I follow? Do I connect? Do I connect to all those newsletters? Because I've also been on that end where I'm so inundated with other people's messages that I'm losing my own core message. So how do we navigate the new waters in the turbulent LinkedIn connect, follow newsletter situation?
I think I fall under kind of Henry's, it doesn't hurt to support the other. If you're asking for people to follow your newsletter to support theirs, at the most, it's another email in your inbox. If I would say after a couple weeks, if the topic doesn't interest you, you can always unfollow it. But I think it's nice to at least support initially and see if if it's worth it, and also to see what people are putting in theirs, because can help kind of get some ideas. And you can also see like what's working, what's not. And then that might give you some ideas for how to message yours to stand out. Because as they come, if you haven't seen them yet, if nobody's on the call is subscribed to a LinkedIn newsletter yet, it comes to your email inbox. So it has the kind of the headline, and you can read it right there. So you don't have to log into LinkedIn to read it. So that's the benefit to you to have the newsletter, is to get into people's inboxes.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm gonna
What
go to your
about-
question in just a second. I'm sorry, Eileen, did you have
What
a
about
follow-up?
follow or connect? What's the difference and what are we building?
Oh, so connect gives you more ability to like message, like directly message. It's a firmer relationship than a follow. So the follow kind of started for like, CEOs and big name people that you didn't actually know, so you couldn't connect with, but they wanted to share content. So they've kind of built that feature in. So I would say if you're trying to start a dialogue with somebody, you want to actually connect versus follow them. But for on your side, building followers, connections or followers is good. Either way, they're going to see your content.
Hey, Devin, can I ask a quick follow-up question to that? Because and maybe others are having this issue. I have subscribed to multiple newsletters, including Henry's, and I don't get any of them. Is there a setting or something in my LinkedIn that I have not turned on correctly or that I need to change? People are telling me it's going to my LinkedIn mailbox, but I literally am not getting them, and they're not going to junk.
I can check into it for you.
Yeah, we need to look into that.
Because mine, we use Google. So Google, if you use Google, they sometimes separate
The Google, you mean Google Gmail?
Yeah.
Okay, I use Outlook.
So sometimes they end up in my like social or promotions tabs. But they are making it in my mail, but I'll check on that. I'll make a note. See if
I don't know if it's happening to other people, but I know there's at least 6 that I was interested in. I've never gotten one, including Henry's. So
Claire, that question was the gift of this call for us.
Yeah, that's good for us to
That's
know.
our gift, yeah. We
Okay.
I studied at the eMyth Academy with Michael Gerber. So you have this whole different mindset about your business. When anybody brings up an issue, the first thing that goes in my mind is, great. It was like, oh, great. Let's write that down and tackle it. And that's how we get, better, a little better every day. It's when you don't know about things. Daniel, I'm going to get to you in just a second, but Jamie, this is going to save me an email and a phone call. I'm reading Rhonda Byrne's latest book. She was the author of The Secret, and she has a quote in there about the joy of giving. And I think you need to track that quote down. You can do something with that in your work. And it was talking about the joy of giving, the joy of receiving, because that's your whole business, is, the giving. Jamie has a great podcast, and you can look into this. She's also going to be speaking at the forum. She is an expert on the strategic use of gift giving to build prospects. And Jamie's thing is not about sending, more cheap little tchotchke. I'm sorry, cheap little souvenir items. I said, some people will get this. I said in a speech the other day, says, well, how'd that make you feel? I said, I was verklempt. And I go, and somebody said, that means he was choked up. It's a Yiddish word. I don't know if he's Jewish, but he's using Yiddish. Okay. Daniel, your question.
Wait. I'm sorry, really quick. Before you do, who was the person? What was the name of the person?
Very famous person.
Yes.
Rhonda Byrne, Byrne. She's the author of The Secret. And if you have a hard time finding it, just email me.
This is the
And,
second book you said.
I'll email the book, or
Yeah.
I'll find it in the book and quote it.
Yeah.
But it was when I was working out. Oh, there's a humble brag. When I was working out the other day at
Yeah.
the gym, so I was listening to the book,
Yeah.
and I just like, oh,
It's, you
that's
said it's
great
the
for
second
Jamie.
book. It's not The Secret.
No, she's had some. This is a follow up to The
Okay.
Secret.
Thank you.
It's the add-on. I see Eric Jensen from Predictive ROI is here.
Yes,
Shout
sir.
out to Predictive ROI. And I've been working with them for several months. And Eric, I wanted to say thank you because I like how much you challenge me. Before you got here, there was a conversation about being challenged, and not in a bad way, but someone who's strategic and will challenge. And my college professor says, he quoted Lord Kelvin, that if what you know cannot be measured, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind.
Ooh, that's a great quote.
But especially for you, because you are also a data dude and you love numbers like I love numbers. And, you know, something like that. Well, Eric's always like, well, 70% of the people will respond in this way, or, you know, he's got numbers to back him up. He's not, we all have opinions. Eric has numbers. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Henry. This has been great. I've got tons of notes already.
Well, we're honored. Daniel, finally, your question.
Well, Henry, as you know, I've spoken in over 31 different countries, and I just got back from Brunei, a mere 17-hour flight.
Yeah.
And my next book is on the book on our succession planning system. How important are blurbs, and how do we secure as many as we need?
Great. And Daniel, we're talking about blurbs on the back of your book, testimonial blurbs.
Yes, those that say you walk on water.
And forewords. Okay. Okay. The foreword is a marketing tool. Every book doesn't need one, but can you find somebody much more famous than you who will say nice things about you? So I've had Ken Blanchard give me forewords. I've had Guy Kawasaki give me forewords. Some of our authors have gotten Dan Pink, you know, huge bestseller, to give a foreword. So the first thing is you ask. Marshall Goldsmith has done forewords for us. The foreword ask, though, Guy Kawasaki, if you don't know Guy Kawasaki, he was the missionary for Apple, and he's in Silicon Valley, and you know, a venture capitalist. He's kind of a big dude. He agreed to give a foreword for one of my books, and months passed and the foreword wasn't forthcoming. So my publisher said, you know, this is it. This is the do or die week. If we don't get it, we go without it. So I went out and got all this writing that Guy had done and looked at it and really saw there's a style. And I wrote the foreword in Guy Kawasaki language. Then I sent the foreword to Guy and said, Guy, I just wanted to do this as food for thought. And he made 2 changes and got it back to me that day, and then sent a note that said, see how quick it happens when you make it easy on people? So I had another author, Marshall Goldsmith, agreed to do the foreword. He's kind of a busy guy. He's probably spoken in more countries than you, Daniel. and 31's pretty impressive. I think I got 3. I'm at 3. Yeah, no, I haven't spoken in Mexico yet, so 3. So I took all these Marshall Goldsmith's writings and I wrote it. And when we sent it to Marshall Goldsmith, his people said, oh, this is great. When did Marshall already write this? Because this is obviously Marshall, and Marshall Goldsmith thought he wrote it. And said, yeah, that's fine. And approved it. So you make it easy. Same thing with the blurbs. The first note that goes out is, if you'd be open to considering doing a blurb this would be greatly appreciated. If is a magic word in psychology, it's a soft knock at the door. It's non-threatening. It's how I teach people how to get out of traffic tickets. The punchline on the story is what you say to the officer is, if you'd be open to giving me a warning, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you can't, I totally understand. I'm 10 for 10. I'm not proud I was pulled over 10 times. I'm 10 for 10. When I said that, the officers let me go with a warning. I've taught it to other people. And the only person it didn't work for was one of my students, because he was a rich graduate student from Brazil, had this red sports car. He was driving too fast from LA to San Diego at night, and the highway patrol pulled him over, and he said that, and he let him off. And then he said, it works. And the next week he came back, he says, your system doesn't work. I said, what do you mean? He says, I got pulled over again. And I said that. I said, was it the same officer? And he goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, it was. I said, well, it doesn't work twice, once. Okay, so I send out a bunch of blurbs. I'll just go to, I don't know, my Warren Buffett book and other books, and I just sort of write generic versions of all these other blurbs people gave me. And I said, here's food for thought. And a lot of people will just go, yeah, number 3, just tweak it. They'll do something. Some author friends I know, we call it log rolling. I'll endorse your books and you'll endorse my books. So there's some log rolling that goes on. So, you got to give to get. You asked me for a testimonial, anybody? You got it, because I'm sending the message to the universe. But I found the testimonials promote me. That's why Marshall Goldsmith does it. And he's very particular about how you describe him under it, because he sees every one of these books as an ad for Marshall Goldsmith books.
Makes
Hope
sense.
that was helpful.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome. Another hand, Fran. Oh, glad to see you, Fran.
Thank you, Henry. Hello, everyone. So there are these podcast mixers. I put information for one I will attend this evening.
Fran, can I stop you? Because I want to be helpful.
Okay.
Hi, this is Fran. I run this business, or I'm the author of this, or so just give us a little
Thank you, Henry.
7-word commercial. Oh, Fran, you have a question?
Thank you, Henry. So my name is Fran Gallagher. I'm an executive coach and intuitive guide, and I bring through extraordinary information so that you have extraordinary results in your life. I am also a ghost.
No, too much. No, I'm going to push back. Now it's too much. It's
Okay.
not an elevator speech.
Okay.
It's what we call, and in my book, Defining You, I call it, it's just your defining statement. It's just a few words. So we know, Fran's an executive coach. Great. Now, what's the question?
So I don't have a question. I just wanted to share with the group that there are podcast mixers where you get to meet podcasters who are looking for their guests for their programs, their shows. Some people I've told about these podcast mixers will say, I attended once and I didn't get invited onto a podcast. Well, it's about building relationships with podcasters, so it does take a little bit of time. I put in the chat information for one that's happening tonight. And if someone wants to contact me, I'll do my best. If you all contact me, I will be up to my ears. But there's another one from a woman named Kat Stancic. I was just looking at her website to see if I could find it, to pop it in here, and I didn't find it. But I didn't find the information on the mixer. But I will just put my email address in and hope that everyone does not get with me, because I'm drowning in emails. I don't know if everybody else is.
Yeah, Fran, if you put that in the chat, Devin can grab it, and we're going to send a follow-up email to everyone. Tip
Okay.
everybody, send a follow-up email within an hour. Learn this from Eric. Within an hour, because we're all moving on to other things, but in an hour, we still remember this time together. And there's some links that we'll share that can be helpful, or anything we mention. So it's not a canned email. it's just something to be helpful as the follow-up. There you are. I'm sorry, Fran. I'm supposed to be looking at the camera, but I'm actually looking at you on my screen. Thank you, Fran, for sharing that. That was awesome. Okay, I think Steve had a question. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to raise my hand with the visual, and I can't do that. So I put it in the chat.
Cool. So what's your
Yes.
question?
So I'm Dr. Steve Slavely, author of the book Ignite Your Leadership, and I run a business called Evolution Leadership Coaching. And my question is kind of a follow-up to the one that that Daniel had. When you asked, for example, Marshall Goldsmith to write that forward, did you know him personally, or was that just someone you identified as a great person to have a forward in your book and took a shot in the dark to get him to approve using his name in that forward?
Yeah. So I had read some of Marshall's books, Mojo and What Got You Here Won't Get You There and all that. So, like Marshall. And then we were there were Vistage, and I'm a Vistage speaker, and Vistage had this big event in San Diego, and he was the star keynoter. And yeah, I just happened to bump into him. If you get my drift.
Gotcha.
And I said,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Thank you so much. And then it didn't ask anything. Just the first one. I'm just a fan. So then something came up. I think, yeah, this book came up, my Buffett book. And I sent an email to Marshall Goldsmith. So great meeting you at the Vistage event. Such a big fan of your work. And then this is being recorded, so I got to be careful on what I say. But then, if you'd be open to this, and came back, yeah, great, do this. There was some event that I was helping put on, and they had a budget of $2,500 for their keynote speaker. And I approached Marshall, and he agreed to do it for $2,500. And then something changed; they couldn't do it, and they went back to him on their own the next year and said, we'd like to have you speak. And he said, great, it's $25,000. Okay. We had one of our authors who really wanted Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall Goldsmith would be the person. Could you ask Marshall Goldsmith for me? I said, well, I can't promise anything. But something I'd read about Marshall was about his daughter, and his daughter's a professor.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to her, and I wrote a Forbes column about his daughter, the professor. Then I asked Marshall for the endorsement for that book. Amazing. He gave me the endorsement for that book immediately.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jamie, you talk about gifts. My Forbes columns are gifts for many people. I'm giving them a gift. I had somebody refuse the gift this week. I gave him the whole thing. I'll write a Forbes column on you and all this. And he goes, what you cover is a little different than mine, so I'm going to pass. I wanted to give him I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but you're making a really stupid mistake here.
Henry, I'll take their place, honey.
Yeah, well, just send me an email, Fran, and you might be rewarded.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Ken Blanchard, wherever I can, I write about him. I've promoted him. I've done all sorts of things for him. And when we had the first Indie Family and Friends Forum, I contacted Blanchard Consulting and said, we're doing our first event, and if we could get anybody from there, and I had done some ghostwriting for them, so anybody from the organization to come speak, that would be so great. And the response was, yeah, we have a speaker for you. Ken Blanchard will be there. Ken's $50,000. And I said, oh, I wasn't asking for Ken. And the response came back that Ken loves you, Henry, and he'll waive all fees and be there for you. So my joke about this is, people say, well, how'd you do that? I said, well, I pulled a thorn out of his paw once and he's helping me. So doing favors and relationships and building things are deposits in the favor bank for these relationships we want to build. And it's not a quid pro quo. And if you're out in California, you talk about the universe will reward you and it'll manifest for you. And in the Midwest, I say God helps those who help themselves. But it's the law of reciprocation, and somebody is going to help you. And I get great gifts all the time. I feel like George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life some days. And there have been some days where I'm like, how are we going to solve this mess? And all of a sudden, I start getting emails and phone calls and from out of the blue. Call it karma, call it kismet, call it what you will. But I don't understand woo-woo, but I know it works.
Thanks,
okay,
Henry.
Another question?
Well, I'll just let a comment before you do. I've seen all 3 episodes of your agency, Rainmaker TV. I saw Nona and Claire and Sharon. Great job. And I think it was maybe Claire that talked about just what you talked about, which is building relationships and the importance of that. And she has a great story on the podcast from that.
Well, thank you for that. And this is a tip for us all. We had done a podcast for 2 years, the Marketing with a Book podcast. And thanks to my work with predictive ROI, I decided to pivot this year. I will help consultants and business coaches, but the only marketing I'm doing is towards agency owners, small to mid-sized agency owners. So we decided to pivot. And I said, okay, well, we need a new podcast. And then I said, you know what's more cooler than a podcast is a TV show. All the TV show is we do a YouTube thing. Now we're working on, okay, the graphics need to be better. I've got an editor working, like we need it's supposed to be like a 1 to 2 second intro and then an outro. So it looks more like a TV show. We'll continue to up the game. I encourage all of you not to do a podcast. Do a TV show, and it's free. And if you need help, again, predictive ROI, there's other people who need to get you set up. Suzanne on our staff, if you're one of our authors, will show you how you can be on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify tomorrow with a TV show, and the audio version of it will be on these other 2 things. The real magic, thanks Steve for bringing it up, the real magic is Claire and Nona and all that are promoting the TV show to their people. And that's how we're, what we call Sector 1, the Sector 1 suspects. We don't know them, but we suspect they might be interested in us. That's how we reach out to the suspects. And then once they sign up for a Q&A, we can email people and invite them to things and just keep offering them free stuff until they say stop. I asked Drew McClellan, somebody who I love and follow, Agency Management Institute. There was a question about when people are on your interest list, how long do you keep contacting them? And he said, until they hire you or file a restraining order. And I'm reminded of the thing about, do you understand what a restraining order is? And I said, yeah, I've dated. I know what a restraining order is. Okay. So the point of that is, but you're just being helpful. You're not being creepy. Do you want to be, can I be your life coach? Do you want to get married? Not a good first date question. So it's that philosophy. And that's why I love predictive ROI and AMI, is because we've been preaching this for years. And I found somebody who was just practicing it on a grand scale. Eric wouldn't like to brag, but I've written about him and the size of predictive ROI and what they've grown this to with that philosophy of being an authority in a certain space and all the things with it. Wasn't easy, you know, my storytelling formula. It wasn't easy. There were some bumps along the way, and they
Yes.
did cross the finish line, and the journey continues. So I see we're about out of time. I can take one more question. If somebody has it, you can shout it out if you can't figure out the hand thing or anything like that. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for being with us today. We have these twice a month. The idea is to build a community, and you can come back and family. It's to build the Indie Books family, and family helping family is the real secret. It's not strangers on the internet. It's being in a family. So thanks everybody for joining us, and hope you come back to another one of our Q&As.